Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and 7 Bucks Productions. August 9th, 1942. The atmosphere inside Kyiv's Zenit Stadium is a suffocating mix of summer heat and military terror. Patrolling the edge of the pitch are Wehrmacht soldiers holding submachine guns. They're German shepherds straining against their leashes, teeth bared at the crowd. The stands are packed with thousands of starving Ukrainian civilians, watching in near total silence. On the field is FC Start, a makeshift team wearing red t-shirts. They are composed primarily of former professional players from Dynamo Kyiv, who are now working at a local bakery. They're training in secret without access to gear or even basic nutrition. Across the pitch from them stands Flakelf, an elite squad of the Nazi Luftwaffe's finest pilots, soldiers, and anti-aircraft artillerymen. This isn't a normal football game. This is a propaganda trap. The referee is a stone-faced SS officer who explicitly warned the Soviets before kickoff. A Flakelf victory is the only possible outcome. The Germans open strong and play hard. They go up 1-0, and the Nazi officers in the VIP box begin to laugh and joke with one another. They think they've broken the Soviet spirit. They think they've broken Kyiv. But they forgot who they were playing against. A ball breaks loose near the midfield. Makar Goncharenko, a lightning-fast winger, intercepts it. Goncharenko is a star player, a 3-time Ukrainian Cup champion with 30 international goals to his name. He drives down the pitch, cutting through the German defense like a razor blade. The crowd holds its breath. A Flakelf defender slides in with a tackle, but Goncharenko leaves him in the dirt. He switches to the other foot and fires a spectacular, blistering volley into the back of the net. The stadium erupts. It is a roar of pure, dangerous defiance. Goncharenko didn't just score a goal. He slapped the Third Reich in the face. This is the beginning of the legendary death match. A game where 11 men looked a firing squad in the face and decided they were going to put their city on their back and play to win anyways. Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we tell the badass history of badasses. My name is Ben Thompson, and today I am joined once again by badass producer Andrew Jacobs. Andrew, thanks for coming back. How have you been?
Pretty good. I'm excited. We're talking about something fun today, a little different, but in the spirit of the World Cup.
Yes. Have you been watching the games?
Oh, yeah. I'm a fan every 4 years. Every 4 years, it doesn't get any better than this. I love the U.S. looked great last week in their first game, which was odd. I mean, over the years they've had good showings, but typically they sort of dominated in a way that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I agree with you. We had that one Landon Donovan goal, and that's about all I remember about. I had a joke going into this because my wife is from Brazil, so my joke going into this was like, oh well, at least Brian will be able to root for one winning team. Yeah, and then the Brazilians are all extremely disappointed with their tie that they had against Morocco, and the Americans are
no good.
So that's been fun.
But no, I mean, there's something about like this thing that happens every 4 years. You got to wait for it, and it's countries from all over the world, and it's like it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. People love soccer. People love it. It's just it's wild to me sometimes how much people love this. They beat each other up. They have wars over this, I feel like.
Yes. But the beauty of it is like right now, I think it was just, what was it, yesterday or a couple days ago, like Iran was playing at SoFi Stadium. And obviously, like,
right.
We've been in a little bit of a conflict with them over the past couple months. And like just the fact that like that can happen says something about the power, the transcendence of sports.
Right. It goes beyond boundaries and all of that and wars and conflicts. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
This is, there will be fun moments of this. There will be some interest. It's going to be a roller coaster ride we're going to go on here today when we talk about the death match, which is we're going to be kind of digging into an intersection between myth and propaganda, weird 1980s nostalgia movies, World War II, Ukraine, like all kinds of things are going to come together for this in the, together with soccer. There's going to be some spy stuff. There's going to be some fighting, some battles. There's going to be some soccer matches, espionage. There's a lot of, Stallone's going to make an appearance. Pele's going to make an appearance. All kinds of weird stuff is going to happen in this episode. So when we come back, we are going to talk about the 1981 film Victory, the 1942 death match, and World War II and soccer in the World Cup. And so if any of that sounds like something you might be interested in, stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Badass of the Week. I am here with Andrew Jacobs. And Andrew, before we get into the story of FC Start and how Dynamo Kyiv fought against the Nazis in World War II, we have to talk about a movie that, I mean, it's old now, but I feel like people have seen Victory from 1981. It's for some people, it's the only access they've had to this story is the movie Victory. Now, I watched this movie when I was a kid, and I remember being sold on the drama, but I haven't watched it recently. So I
rewatched it last night.
You took one for the team.
I think I suggested we do this episode
That's true.
a couple
weeks
ago,
idea.
And I was like, you know what? There's that movie Victory. It's the World Cup. There's that movie Victory, and that movie was supposed to be inspired by a true story, and that was all I had.
It's The Great Escape, maybe? I think The Great Escape. I think it's based on The Great Escape.
It's a combination of The Great Escape and this true story of the death match, and or the story of the death match, which is debatably a questionable story.
We'll get into it.
But yeah, I mean, this movie is as old as I am. It's 1981, and directed by the legendary director John Huston. And
I didn't know he directed this.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's most of the movie is pretty not good. Let's be honest. I
bet the music's good though. I can't remember the music for it.
Some of the music is decent. It's just a quick plot recap here is it's a POW camp, and the Nazi in World War II, and the Nazis, there's like this Nazi guy, and he's like watching him play soccer, and he just goes, what if we had a match? The Germans versus the Nazis. This is like the first 2 minutes of the movie. What if we had a match? And then Michael Caine, who plays who's the Allied coach and a former footballer, is like, yeah, let's do it. So 5 minutes into the movie, Germany and the Allies are planning a soccer match.
They're in Paris, right? They're outside of Paris, I think.
Well, it gets it turns into a big propaganda thing for the Germans. They're like, actually, you're going to play the German national team, and you're going to do it in the stadium in Paris in front of everyone. And it gets combined with the Allies being they're trying to embarrass us. We need to plot an escape attempt to get out of this. And so it sort of culminates, by the way, Sylvester Stallone is in this movie. He's terrible at soccer. And at least in this movie, they basically acknowledge that. At one point, he like just tackles, like football tackles a guy. And Michael Caine gets mad at him. And the whole movie culminates in this big fictional match in Paris. The movie's pretty bad, but I will say the soccer like game footage is pretty awesome.
Pele, right?
Well, Pele is like his name's like Luis Fernandez, and they've got a bunch of other like famous European like footballers play, on the team, and it's just shot entirely, like the game is shot entirely differently than the rest of the movie, and it's just like looks awesome. Cool. And so like that point, you're like, oh. They're like at one point they're just going to sit down. We're just going to shoot a really awesome game of soccer or football, whatever you want to call it. Forget what happened to the rest of this movie, which is pretty silly. And Sylvester Stallone is the goalie, and even that is, he. Yeah. So I'm not going to spoil it in case anyone wants to go and watch it, but it is one of the I had to think about this. I'm like, what are the best soccer movies ever? And it's easily, I'm like, Victory, Shaolin Football, or Shaolin Soccer, or whatever, which is phenomenal, and Ladybugs. I don't know what else there is.
Yeah. I am picturing like scenes of like Amazing Soccer, like hard cut to Stallone, where he's like 3/4 cropped out of the screen and being like, "Save!"
The game's brutal. I'll say that, because the Germans are like, the refs are on our side, haha. And so it's just like they're just like beating each other up.
Classic '80s sports movie.
yeah. But the movie was inspired by a Polish movie called like the Battle of Two Halves, or Two Halves in Hell, or something like that, which was not Polish, Hungarian, I'm sorry. The movie was inspired by a Hungarian movie that was inspired by the death match, which you are going to tell us about.
Right. What's the most ridiculous thing that happens in the movie?
What is the most, it would be kind of spoiling the ending.
Okay, the ending though.
A little like they managed to like set up this escape attempt, where they're all going to escape from the locker room at halftime, and they crawl down the tunnel and they're in the sewers, and then one guy, Michael Caine, Sylvester, they're all in there, and then one guy just goes, "Hey, wait a minute, they're losing 4-1 at this point," and one guy goes, "Hey, wait a minute, we can win this game," and Michael Caine goes, "We can win this game? We can win this game," and they're all like, "What?" He's like, "We can win this game." So they all get excited about like going out to win this game, in which they were getting brutally destroyed in the first half, and decide
we're down 3. We're halfway to London.
Yeah, and so they decide not to escape and go and play the rest of the game.
Great.
because they can win this game, because one guy said they can do it, which I mean, it was not. Yeah, first half was not pretty. That was pretty absurd, the turn on that. And just the beginning where the guy was like, "What if we played a soccer match?" And like 5 minutes later, it's like Germany is playing a soccer match versus the Allies.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
like you said, the story of the death match doesn't start in Hollywood. It starts in the Soviet Union. And it was a big piece of propaganda during the war. So, the original story here, the official story, is pretty simple. The Nazis in the early days of World War II, they overrun most of Eastern Europe, much of the Soviet Union, basically get all the way to Moscow. When they go into occupied Kyiv, the story is there was this group of people in occupied Kyiv who formed this soccer team. They were former members of or current members of Dynamo Kyiv, which is like the big, the team from Ukraine that plays in the European championships and things. And these guys formed a team. The Nazis were like, "You're going to play same thing. Why don't we play a game together?" And then the team they formed wasn't called Dynamo Kyiv. It was called FC Start. And at halftime, FC Start is up pretty big against the Germans. An SS officer comes into their locker room and is like, Germany's supposed to win this game. And they ignore that. They come out, they win 8-0, and then they're immediately executed in some versions on the field, in some versions in the locker room. And so these guys are given this martyr's choice at halftime. If you're going to do this, you're going to die. And they're kind of like, yeah, we'd rather die for the motherland than live under your fascism. We won't give up. And so they play and they win, and they're all killed.
And that's also basically the premise of the Hungarian movie. It's like the same plot. Spoiler alert, the ending is just like they're warned at halftime, and then in the second half they're like, no, we're going to win this game. And,
we can win this game.
Yeah. And they win, and then they're executed. And it's...
yes. And this story takes place in 1942, which is in the earlier time of the war. It's around the time Moscow's like under siege. Stalingrad is like, hasn't quite happened yet when the story starts to come out of Kyiv that like these brave professional soccer players went up against the Germans under penalty of death, and they still defeated them. We're all going to join together and fight for the motherland. They were able to like secretly make uniforms in the story. They're able to secretly make red uniforms with the Soviet flag on it. So when they take the field, the crowd all goes crazy for them. They win 8-0, and they're all killed, just gunned down on the field. That was a story that came out during the war as propaganda. They made a film of it. The Soviets made a film of it to like as a newsreel to show to people to get them angry and motivated and inspired at the same time. And then that became a very famous story in the Soviet Union. Now I think it says a lot, Andrew, about this, that in the American version, they have to like make an escape. And they have to all live and get away. Whereas in the Soviet version, it's very bleak and everyone's dead at the end.
It definitely says something about our cultures.
Yeah, I think so. Like 1980s USA versus 1940s Russia.
Yeah,
different outlook,
different vibe. That's for sure.
A different vibe. Okay, so let's talk about the reality of this, because these are both propaganda versions of a true story that actually happened. And we have footage of the actual game. And we have the names of the players on the team. We know a lot about this actual events of FC Start and the death match. And it's very different from the Soviet version. And it's very different from it's extremely different from the Pele version.
The Pele version, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the story starts in Kyiv in 1942. The Germans have come in. They've Operation Barbarossa. They've steamrolled the Soviets. They've overrun Ukraine. They've taken Kyiv. And over the course of the next few months, they march 33,000 residents of Kyiv out to this place called Babin Yar and machine gun them and throw them into a hole. Like, this is peak like Nazi brutality, death camps, murders in the street, Einsatzgruppen, people are starving, they don't have clothes, they don't have food. The German government at this point, the Nazi Reich, is consolidating, they're appropriating industry in Kyiv. And one thing that Ukraine has always been known for is they grow a lot of food there, right? It's the breadbasket of Europe. So there's a lot of wheat. And one of the factories in Kyiv that gets appropriated is Kyiv Bread Factory number 3. And it's just like a very Soviet name for this thing. It's like you couldn't.
Yeah.
In the movie, you have to call it something else. But if you say Soviet or Kyiv Bread Factory number 3, you're like, okay, I can picture the building.
We've got like box. Wonder Bread or whatever here in the US, and it's like Bread Factory number 3 in Ukraine.
Yeah. Wonder Bread.
Yeah.
And so the guy who is in charge of Bread Factory number 3 is a Czech guy named Josef Kordik. And Kordik was born in Czech, but he's been living in Kyiv for a long time. He predates he's not brought in by the Germans. He was a Kyiv resident for years when the occupation happens. But because he's not a Soviet, wasn't born a Soviet, isn't of the, whatever that racial stock that the Germans didn't want, he's like, they put him in charge. Like, okay, he was a successful businessman. He knows how to run a company. You're now in charge of bread factory number 3. Great. So Kordic is doing that. He's running the bread factory, and he's also like a huge soccer fan from Kyiv. He's crazy for it. So one day he's kind of walking around, and the situation in Kyiv is very bleak. Yes, they grow a lot of food here, but that food is immediately going out of bread factory number 3 into a truck that's being driven to the German front lines to feed German soldiers to fight more Soviets, right? This is not being distributed to the population. People are starving in the street. They're dying. They're ratting each other out. Everybody's scared. Really, really dark, bleak time for the city. Anyway, Kordic is walking around, and he sees on the side of the road there's some dude, and he's got like a little towel laid out on the sidewalk, and it's got cigarette lighters on it. And this guy's just trying to like sell cigarette lighters. He doesn't have a lot of them, and they're not in good condition. And Kordic looks at this guy, and he's like, "Holy crap! You're Mikola Trusovic. You're the goalie for Dynamo Kyiv." And he's like, "Yeah, I was." The sports stop when the Nazis take over, and everybody's trying to make a living. And so he's like, "Oh my God, I know who you are. Like, you were awesome. I went to all your games. Like, you were amazing. You're like my sports hero." And Trusovic is like, "Yeah, it's hard for all of us," or whatever. And Kordic's like, "Don't worry about it. I'll get you a job at the bread factory. You come work for me." So takes him there basically like the next day. Trusovic is working for him at the bread factory. And then Kordic's like, "Look," he's like, "I loved watching you guys play. Who else do you know on the team? Get everybody. Like, I'll give them a job. Like, I'm not going to let these guys suffer and die." And at the time, if you didn't have a job in Kyiv, you didn't eat. The only way to get housing, food, any of that stuff, the Nazis do not care about the population of Kyiv, and they're willing for them. They're okay with everybody. They're dying. And so if you don't have a job, you don't get any of the benefits of you're going to die. And so a lot of these guys were unemployed, or they were marginally employed. They're selling lighters in the street corner. Start putting together this crew of guys who had played Trusovic's buddies. Ivan Kuzmenko is like this. He was like a big, strong guy. They said he would practice soccer with a medicine ball. Like that was his training, was that he would practice with a medicine ball, throw-ins and kicks and all that. It
reminds me of I think, I don't know if it's a true story or an anecdote, that like Jerry Rice was like used to catch bricks.
Yes.
Instead of footballs. Okay.
You dodge a wrench, you can dodge a you can dodge a ball.
You can catch a brick, you can catch a football.
Yeah. So Trusovic is the goalie. He gets Kuzmenko, the muscle, like the physical powerhouse, who is still super strong. He's been training, even though he has no food, he's still training like that. He's still exercising with a medicine ball and stuff. He gets Nikolai Korokodich. He gets Makar Goncharenko, who was the top scorer on the team, a star, like internationally known, like star soccer player. And now Kordic has this bread factory number 3, but it's loaded with like most of the starting lineup of Dynamo Kyiv, because he's like, "Oh, that's cool. Like Michael Jordan's out of a job. He can come work for me. That's fine," And then these guys are playing, and he's like, "Well, let me get you guys a soccer ball." And so, on your breaks, you can go out in the yard and play soccer. And so they start training, they start playing. And these aren't amateurs. This is Dynamo Kyiv. They're running drills. They're getting fit. They're starting to look like a team again. And they're doing this all in secrecy, because they're doing it in an internal courtyard in the bread factory, so that the Nazis can't see them from on a patrol or from a tower or something. And, just kind of exercise, morale boosting. Great. And these guys are training. They're just like, their diet is bread and water, right? They're not, they're not eating high protein. They're not doing protein shakes and creatine supplements. But they're out there and they're playing. And eventually word starts to get out that the bread factory team can play. And okay, so there are like pickup games in the area with some of the other factories and whatever. The Germans allowed this to continue. The bread factory team starts to play, and it's it's just pros against just dudes.
Pros against Joes.
Pros against Joes, and they're crushing, right? It's like it's like the beer league softball team that shows up and everybody looks like they should play for the Mariners. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because they did.
Be like, we gotta play against this guy.
Yeah.
I gotta pitch to Aaron Judge and slow pitch softball. And so the Germans get word of this and they're like, all right, we want a piece of this too. So Andrew, this is kind of like the first major question that happens here, because in the movie and in all versions of this, they're like, oh, these guys are just too good. Let's play a game. Why not? Let's play a game. The real reason the Germans want to play these guys is not like, hey, let's play a game, it'd be fun. It's like, hey, let's we're occupying this city, and the city is not broken in the way we were expecting them to be broken. They're still resisting us. They're coming out and cheering for this team that used to be their team. This is a big problem for the Nazis in charge of Kyiv at the time. Interesting.
The movie is a little bit more Max von Sydow, who plays the sort of Nazi German, prison camp guy. He's more
traditional Max von Sydow.
Yeah. He's just a soccer fan. Like, he just loves the game. And like by the end of the movie, at one point when like Pele naturally scores a goal with a bicycle kick, against the German team, like Max von Sydow like stands up and like applauds, because he's just like, it's so amazing. Like all the other German, Nazi officials are like, what the hell? He's just like, amazing. So like he just loves it. But it's the rest of the Nazis who are like, oh, we can use this as an opportunity to create their own propaganda about how obviously the Nazis are like great at everything. So that's the sort of framing of that, is like, it was one person's idea was like, who just loves soccer, but then it would turn into another thing.
Well, I'm not sure where this story starts, but it does end up being the latter. It does end up being like, okay, let's publicly break these guys. Let's publicly humiliate these guys, and we'll have them start playing. Like, we'll bring soccer back to Kyiv, and we'll see what these guys can do. Now, I think this might be a good time for us to go and take a really quick break, because the tension in Kyiv is going to hit a breaking point here. Posters start being made that like Dynamo Kyiv is still around. They're called FC Start now. They're out of the bread factory, and these guys can play. It's most of the starting lineup from a European like champion team, and now the Germans are going to start putting some teams together to play against them. Posters start to go. They start to book like stadiums. The city is starting to get cautiously optimistic, because they're not dumb. They know that the fix is on, right? They're not surprised. They're like, oh great, now they're going to publicly humiliate like our old stars. But I don't know. I'll go watch the game. Maybe we can win this. All right. It's gonna get kind of wild. So I'm gonna take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about the
game day.
Start. Yeah, the death match.
Cool.
All right, welcome back. We are here. We are in Kyiv in 1942, and FC Start, comprised mostly of bread factory workers who used to be professional football players, are now up against the German. They're going to start playing exhibitions against German-sponsored football teams. Now, Kyiv at this time had been pretty bleak and miserable for obvious reasons. And
pause. At this time, or for like at this point, it's like a decade of miserableness. I mean,
right, yeah. I mean, just most of the existence of the city, honestly.
It's been rough. It's been a rough go for the past, like, because what are they had like famine 10 years earlier. This killed like millions.
The Great
in Ukraine.
Soviet famine. World War I was really hard on Ukraine. I mean, it doesn't get you. Peter the Great, Catherine the Great. We even go back to like the Mongols came through there once, right? Like,
it's been a rough go. Still things are still things. I mean, 2026, still rough over there.
It's been a rough go of it for Kyiv.
Yeah.
So in 1942, it's continuing to be bleak, and but people are starting to get excited. People are buying tickets to these games, and they're going to go and they're going to watch. And FC starts playing games and they start winning, and they start winning by a lot. The German teams they put up against them are, it's not just like they don't bring in the German national team like they do in the movie. They play against another pro team. They have a pro team that was mostly like collaborationist Ukrainians who were siding with the Nazis. They put those guys out. They get crushed 8-0, right? The Germans put together a team of like some of the guys from like the town guard. Those guys go out to play. They get crushed. They're just dudes playing up against professional soccer players. I don't care how malnourished these guys are. They're going out there and they're winning, and they're winning big in these games, and the crowds are coming to this. And it's like, it's not only, hey, our guys are winning the game, but it's also like our guys are like slide tackling their dudes and knocking them down, right? That guy is like a Nazi guard for Kyiv. Like, this guy just slide tackled the hell out of him and he's down, right? Like, we can metaphorically and physically kick you in the teeth now and like get away with it, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
These guys are running on bread and water. They're the only thing left from the occupation. They're crushing it. The every time, monster dude Kuzmenko smashes into one of the German midfielders, the crowd goes insane. Now you've got these Gestapo, and maybe there are like, one thing I do like about what you said is the Max von Sydow character. I'm sure there are Germans in the town who are just like, this is great. Like, I love watching soccer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to watch this. I've been at war for 3 years now, and this is much better than getting shot at. You've got these dudes who are continuing to be malnourished. They're terrified that, because they know if they do win too many of these games, they probably are going to be executed. But they didn't keep their heads down. They go out there, and every goal they score is a middle finger to the Gestapo agents who are on the sideline watching them do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's something very brave about these guys doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that in the movie, it's like they've got like Germans patrolling the sidelines with like, the German shepherds and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you had to like, you're going out there to play a soccer match. There's something about, I can imagine there's something about being in the moment, and it's like, you might not be able to fight back like on the battlefield, right? But you can fight back in this moment on the field. There's something about that, because sometimes it's like providing that, that spirit to the crowd, that it matters.
It does.
So I can kind of see why these guys were playing, right? They loved it, they were good at it, and it's what they could do in that moment.
It's the only way they can fight back against the Nazis right now.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing, and they're inspiring the city, and
but it's
working.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, and that Soviet propaganda that they use for these players, where it's like these guys knew the risks and they were brave and they did it because they, the Soviet propaganda puts it into like their, love for the motherland and all of that. But that's not all wrong. They did hate these guys, and they did want to defeat them, and they did want to do what they could to save their city and save their people. And this counts. So August 9th, 1942, the Germans are, FC Start is at the top of the table here. They're number one in the standings by a big margin. The Germans have to do something. So they bring in a team, they call them Flak Elf, which means, a lot of times you'll see this portrayed in the Soviets and Victory both portray this as like basically the German national team. Yeah. The Bundesliga doesn't exist yet in 1942, but they basically bring in like Bayern Munich to like play play this team. And it's not really that. It's Flak Elf. It's the German Air Force. So like Flak being like the anti-aircraft gun, okay, and Elf being 11. So it's 11 guys from the anti-aircraft service from the German,
sure,
Luftwaffe. But they're good, and they're not malnourished, and they have played. And some of these guys are literally like pro soccer players who were drafted into the Wehrmacht, and now these guys they were given kind of cushy jobs in anti-aircraft defense where they weren't going to get shot at that much. Yeah. So you have these guys who are well rested, well fed. They're getting their creatine supplements and their protein bars. These guys come out there and they're going to play a game August 9th, 1942 against FC Start. The match is sold out, and in Victory it's a sold out Paris stadium, crowds going nuts and everything. everybody here, Kyiv turns out for this. The Germans have their own section. They have their military section. Like you said, there are guards with dogs patrolling. There's wire. There's machine guns in the stadium. Kyiv turns out for this, but Kyiv, the energy is not quite Super Bowl energy. It's like, oh shoot, like, are we gonna see these guys get machine gunned on the court, on the field here, right? Like, like they're cautious, but they want to see what happens, and they're excited for their team to win, but they're also scared when they show up what's going to happen here.
It's a lot of real tension.
Real tension. The Germans bring in a famous professional referee who had years and years of experience reffing international games, who also happens to be a high-ranking officer in the SS.
Obviously.
So that part is not Hollywood. And so the bread factory guys, they go out and, it's a battle. It's a battle, and it's a battle of two halves. And FC Start, it goes back and forth. FC Start pulls it out. They win 5-3. And it's violent and bloody. And there's yellow cards handed out. Plenty of yellow cards handed out, lots of goals, lots of tackles. The crowd is going crazy. They start getting into it. FC Start scores their winning goals. They get that fourth goal and everybody goes nuts. The SS ref is probably losing his mind. The Gestapo agents watching the game are probably losing their mind. And the master race is disassembled in front of tens of thousands of screaming Ukrainians.
I'm imagining the classic video, clip from the movie Downfall, with where Hitler's like 99999,
where they do the subtitles, right?
Yeah, there's subtitles. They're like, oh, they
switch to a 4-4-2? That's okay. We'll get him on penalty kicks.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They're telling him they lost. Yeah.
Dushenko scored a goal with 14 minutes left in the second.
The women in that room are always like, and they
look like they're gonna cry. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what happens though, right? For 90 minutes, FC Start and the city of Kiev owned their own soccer stadium. And for a moment they win, and it's huge and it's glorious and it's inspiring. And it inspires these stories that have given us victory and have given us two halves in hell and have given us the FC Start propaganda that we know today. Now, the reality of what happens to these guys is very different. They are not executed on the field. They are not marched directly into prison. They aren't machine gunned in the locker room. The truth is a little trickier. Now, these guys do wear red uniforms, and there's a guy, one of the survivors from the team is Makar Goncharenko. He was the goal scorer. He scored a couple goals in the final. He was the famous goal scorer. He survives this whole thing. And he was like, yeah, we had red shirts. That's true. The goalie, was like, we need a uniform because otherwise we can't see our guys when we're on the field. We need a uniform. So he went out and he just happened to find red shirts. And we didn't really think much about it when we got him, but we did come out with red shirts and we didn't really put it together at the time. Yeah. Now, these guys, they win. They go up against a Ukrainian collaborationist team a few weeks later. They win that one by a monster margin, 7-0, 8-0, something like that. The Gestapo, eventually, these guys become a symbol of resistance for the city, and they are arrested by the Gestapo. A group of them is sent to Syrets concentration camp. Trusevich, the goalie, Kuzmenko, the big strong dude, Klemenko, they're executed in the camp. Karaktik, turns out, actually was an NKVD agent. So NKVD is like the pre-KGB. He was a Soviet agent, and he probably was reporting on German operations in Kyiv to the Soviet high command. So throughout all of this happening, the Gestapo, the excuse they used for arresting these guys was that they thought they were enemy agents. But this guy, Karaktik, he was an enemy agent, and he had been using his access to feed information about German troop positions to Moscow. Now, I think that's bravery on its own. That's badass that this guy actually was a spy. He is executed by torture. Oof. So that's a rough one. There's no last minute escape for these guys. These 4 men are executed. The rest of the team survives, including Goncharenko. And this is where the story gets really weird, because these guys become heroes right away. These 4 guys are executed within, the game is on like the 6th of August. These guys are executed within 20 days of that game. Now, the story goes out that these guys, and in the version of the story, they're shot on the field in front of the whole stadium or whatever. They become this newsreel footage that inspires Soviet propaganda throughout the war. When the war ends, some of these guys end up getting repatriated back into the Soviet Union. But the Soviet Union is not excited about bringing these guys back and being like, here's that guy. He was from that team. Remember? Isn't that cool? Because there's this weird thing. Like, these guys are, when
they were supposed to be martyrs.
They're supposed to be martyrs.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have died for the motherland. It would have been better if they had, right? They are interrogated by the NKVD when the city is liberated. Why did you survive when your teammates didn't? Did you rat them out? Did you give up information? Did you collaborate with the Germans?
Oh, geez.
That guy, and like Kordik, the head of the bread factory, they're like, you're Czech, you worked with them, you ran a bread factory that fed the Nazi war machine. These guys that were under your command were killed. He has to kind of lay low. And so now these guys are being treated as suspects by their own government. They've lived through the war. They've lived through World War II. They've lived through the Nazi occupation of Kyiv. They've lived through the concentration camps. Then they had to live through the NKVD reprisals. They're lucky they didn't end up in a gulag. So these guys don't end up in a gulag. They don't end up in jail. They are kind of questioned and pushed to the side and never talked about again. Most of what we know of the real story here comes from Goncharenko, because Goncharenko outlives Stalin. And so later on in the 70s, he starts writing his story where he's like, I don't think it was, they didn't tell us we were going to die if we won the game. That version of the story where the Germans come in and they're like, you're going to die if you don't, that didn't happen. He's like, well, the red shirts, that was an accident. We he kind of tells the story that we know now, or the one that I have just now. And it's only because he survived past Stalin. So now we hit this weird spot, because these guys are caught in a pincer movement between 2 totalitarian dictatorships. The Nazis want to erase them from history. The Soviets wanted to control their narrative and not have them have any input on it. None of them really cared about the people. They care about the symbol and what they represent. And even Victory does that as well, right? It's not about those guys. None of those guys are named, right? It doesn't mean they're not even Russians. There's not a single Russian in that movie.
No, they are not Russians.
or Ukrainian or Soviet citizen.
No. Actually, you know what? I take that they make a point in that movie where Michael Caine is like, he's giving the names of all the best footballers that he remembers, right, for the Nazis to go and get, and he's like, what about these guys? And he's like, a bunch of Eastern Europeans basically, and they were like, oh, you can't have those guys, and he's like, no, I want those guys. And they show up, and eventually they show up, and it's like these 3 guys. They're not named, they don't say what country they're from, but they clearly have just been brought from a concentration camp. They're like, entirely malnourished and traumatized, and like they get welcomed onto the team. They are not going to play. They're but they're there. So they do. There's a little nod.
To it. I like that.
Yeah.
So now we need to look at the legacy of FC Start. It was a story of a football match, and then it's a story of a resilience of a city that, as we said, is like still the symbol of resilience today against foreign aggression. Aggression is coming from the other direction this time, but nonetheless, you have these players, and you see this with the Ukrainians who competed in the Olympics, right? They kind of are able to. There was that guy who got kicked out of the Olympics because he wouldn't take the Ukrainian flag off his helmet. Stuff like that. There's stories that inspire people, and there's stories from sport, and this isn't ancient history. This is our grandparents' generation, my grandparents' generation, my father's generation, right? And these guys kind of represent the heartbeat of this city that won't quit and won't give up, and kind of the power of sports to motivate and inspire people. Now, Andrew, we've kind of dug through the myth the Soviet myth, the Hollywood myth, the real story. What do you think the lesson is that we can take away from FC Start and the death match and all of?
I mean, I think here's the thing. Like, I think it just goes back to, it's like sports can transcend, boundaries, right? And the fact that we are talking about them today means what they did meant something, still today and then, right? And I'm sure that, the story of this team, while lesser known here in the US, where Ladybugs might be the most popular soccer movie here.
These names aren't well known in Russia. That's the thing. They're not that well known even in Ukraine, because those names never were released. It was just the players, the collective.
Yeah.
Right? The proletariat did this, not this guy by name.
But that story of FC Start, I bet, is a little bit better known in Ukraine. Sure. I think that's probably a story that they sort of hold on to and means something to them. And so, I think it's, I enjoy stories like these. It's a story of resistance and against all odds in a way that you wouldn't expect.
So you're going to produce the remake of Victory? I think Stallone's still available.
Stallone is still available. He could
coach the team now. Victory 2.
Yeah, Victory 2. I looked, and it looks like they've tried to. There's been a remake that's been like announced a couple times over the past 15 years, but nothing's come to fruition. I think it would be more the real story that we've just discussed would be a little bit more interesting than the Hollywood version
on turf.
Yeah.
Now, there was a story that came out. I want to kind of tie this back into the World Cup before we sign off here. And there was a story that, I don't know, I was watching some of this coverage like leading up to the World Cup, and there was, I wish I could remember who it was, but somebody on ESPN was saying, like, for those of you who are going to the games, because people travel from all over the world to go to these games. That's the thing about sport. It brings the world together, right? As much as this was a story of battle and competition, like, it does bring people together. The Max von Sydows of the world, and the the people who came out to watch these games because they like soccer and they like whatever. So there was a guy on ESPN, and he was saying that that he had gone to the World Cup many, many, many years ago, and he sat in the stands and he watched a bunch of games, and he started talking to people. And his advice was, like, make 3 friends. If you're going to the World Cup, make friends with 3 strangers, and from other countries, from the rest of the world, right? It makes the world a smaller place. He's like, I made 3 friends at that World Cup, and I go visit them. Like, I visit them in their countries and stay with them. My wife and me, like, we go and stay with them, and it's great. And I still talk to all of them. And, those connections and bringing not just a city together, but the world together with something like a World Cup, I think that's powerful and that's important. And I think that's what these guys from FC Start did for Ukraine. Trusevic, Kuzmenko, Kuroktik, Oncharenko, these guys, they united people. And I think there's something really powerful about that. So, all right, Andrew, thank you so much for helping me tell this story. I think this was a really interesting one. And when you first suggested we do a Stallone movie for Badass, I was in, and then I was even more in after I started reading more about it.
Of course.
All right. Thanks to all of you out there for listening. We do this every week. We are currently offering ad-free episodes on Patreon. If you don't want to listen to commercials, that's a good spot to go. And the rest of you, we're happy to have you listen to our commercials as well. You know where to find us. Like and subscribe, and tell your friends and tell your enemies, and find 3 friends at the World Cup and tell them to subscribe to Badass of the Week.
Hell yeah.
And until then, we'll see you next week.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. Executive producers are Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, Andrew Jacobs, Hiram Garcia, Brian Gewirtz, Frankie Chaparino, and of course, me, Ben Thompson. Writing is by me and my semi-regular but always awesome co-host, Dr. Patricia Larish. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Our mixing, music, and sound design is done by the incomparable Jude Brewer. Production support by Jean McHale-Waite. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, tell your friends, and tell your enemies. And please leave us a review. If you want to support Badass of the Week, please check out our Patreon page. We'll be back next week with another one.